my class I have around 30 students and 16 of those are bilingual. I found this out by doing a survey of the students at the beginning of the year with them. And I just asked them some basic questions. What languages do you speak at home? What country were you born in? How long have you been in New Zealand?
I'm from China and I'm born here as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Korea and I arrived here just 2 months.
I'm Chinese and I came to New Zealand 10 years ago.
There are some students in the class who sound like they know how to speak English, but then when you look at a written piece of text, they've got lots of problems with like putting together their sentences. So those students are developing in their English language abilities, but they're not quite at the stage where they can use academic language properly. Okay, so you'll notice that those 6 statements on your sheet actually all start with either I know or I understand. So as you read them, what I'd like you to do is tick the things that you already know how to do or that you already understand about genetics, genetic mutations, and anything that you already know how to do in terms of writing explanations to paragraphs. This time I used something called a learning grid. So instead of the students will be able to statements, I had I know how to or I understand statements.
I thought the learning grid was really helpful because it gave us like an outline of what we were going to learn, and like it had 3 columns which we could tick over the time that we were going to learn the whole thing, and like if we didn't know we could always go like home and revise over it, and then as the unit kept on going we felt proud like we could learn all that stuff, and at the end of the unit like we've achieved something and it felt good.
No. I don't think we know how to do that just yet, but yeah, you know how to do that.
Do you know how to do this one?
Yeah.
Say you've got one paragraph.
Yeah.
So we both don't know how to do that.
Yeah, we need to learn, I need to learn these 2 and you need to learn these 2.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Before I started using these kinds of activities in my classroom, I just didn't do very much to prepare them for reading. I basically wrote on the board the page numbers they needed to read and the comprehension questions they needed to fill out. The anticipatory guides are really great because the students get to give their opinion, and often we just tend to transmit information and teach them things, and we don't actually give them a chance to think about what they think. So using this guide where you have 5 statements that are a bit ambiguous, where they have to think, you know, do I agree, do I disagree? And then giving them a chance to speak to one another about it engages them a bit more, gets them a bit interested in what they're going to read, because they think, oh, really, stomach cancer is hereditary? Oh, wow, I better read and find out whether it is or not.
Well, it's
It could be through something else though.
It should be recessive, like all mutations and stuff are all normally recessive.
Are they?
Well, it's because they're rare.
Well, if it's dominant, then everyone would have cancer, but I don't think it's
Now, you've done a
dominant.
really good amount of talking about these things. Now you're going to actually use your text to find some evidence for your opinions. You're going to read all of the yellow sections of the text. So this is the title page. We're going to start on the page number 2 is where the story begins. And as you turn through, remember, if it's a purple page, you're not reading that. You're reading the yellow pages. All right? The yellow pages. It's a really good book to use because it's got a story that tells about this stomach cancer which has been inherited through a family. So it's a really nice link between culture and science and real-world experience.
Before we read the book, we have to disagree or agree with them, and some of the statements were like that more Polynesian people have a higher chance of getting stomach cancer than European people, and I thought that was false, but after reading the book, I found that it was true because it actually stated some data in it.
I'm from Japan. I came to New Zealand in January this year.
I was born in Rwanda, but then we moved to Burundi when I was like real little. And then from Burundi, we moved to Kenya. That's where I stayed like most of my childhood time. And then I came to New Zealand when I was about 6.
I was born here in New Zealand, but I was like taken back to Tonga, and then they brought me back in, so I was back and forth like between the countries. Up till now, I've been back and forth from Tonga like for about like 7 times. So I've stayed like for like maybe half a year and then come back. So
I speak Ikirundi, Ichinyarwanda, Swahili, French and English, but my mum doesn't really like us speaking English at home, so yeah.
At home I speak Tongan and Bislama. It's one of the main languages in Vanuatu. It's like broken English, so like with my sisters, but not with my parents, because I speak Tongan with my parents. Oh, it was funny because I didn't have to speak English properly, and so I'd have like my own remixes and my own words, and they all started laughing at me. But then I didn't care about that because I was me and I didn't mind.
In my science class, it was difficult for me. I had to memorize everything in English, so yeah.
Just getting my ideas or everything from my head onto a piece of paper. Like, sometimes I have words, but they're not in English and I can't translate it properly into, like, to be, like, exactly the same meaning into English. So.
When you come 5 minutes in the beginning of the class, giving us a little quiz of what we've done last lesson, which you can remember and refreshes your mind.
Before we start, we're going to go back a little bit, back to the beginning of the year, and we did a topic where we were using ions, and the recognition of ions is going to be crucial for the work that we're coming on to in redox. So unless we can recognise the ions, unless we have an idea what colour they may be, we will not be able to describe what's happening to them. So we're going right back to describing ions. Of course, we all remember what an ion is, don't we, Sinead?
Of course we do.
Yes, we do. An ion is? Yes. Morgan?
A charged particle.
Or group of charged particles, isn't it? At the beginning of a lesson, I would very often ask the students what we did yesterday, to think back to what we did yesterday. Sometimes I'll pretend I can't remember. So I'm trying to think out loud at the same time as the students are thinking back to where we were the previous day.
When I took on this class, there were students from Africa, Fiji, students with Hindi as their first language, Shona as a first language. But when Sombath arrived 2 weeks ago, that just gave a new dimension to the class.
I come from Cambodia, but I've been here only nearly 3 months. Yeah. At home, we speak Cambodia. It's hard because it's my third language. It's hard to study. I don't understand about the English.
I come from Zimbabwe, and I've been here for a year. And in my house, I speak Shona. That's my language.
New Zealand. I was New Zealand born, and the first language was Samoan, and I learned English.
Our first activity for this afternoon is to write anything you know about angle properties. And you may write down any questions that you may have about angle properties. Can you share those properties with the person next to you?
A quadrilateral triangle adds up to 360. Angles at a point add up to 360, and exterior angles add up to 360.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I'll go see them.
Yes, me too.
Do you have the same as mine?
Yeah.
Do you have any that I don't? Do you have any things that I do? Do you have any properties that you don't, that I do?
Yeah.
You know, which ones that you don't have?
Which one? Yeah.
Yeah. Exterior angles add up to 360.
Yeah.
Do you have it?
No.
Go write it down.
Yeah, well, it's definitely a diverse class. You're very multicultural. There's a big group of Filipino students, Korean, Chinese. Some of those will have arrived recently. So, you know, they're ESOL and maybe funded for NESB students, or some of them may have been here for 3 or 4 years. Pacific Island students. Actually, a quick poll of the class with about 2/3 of them speak another language, so yeah, very diverse.
My name is Atari and I come from Georgia. I came to New Zealand in 1999 and stayed for 4 years, and then I went back to my country for 3 years, and I came back 4 months ago.
I am Otari's brother. I came in New Zealand five months ago. I know Georgian and Russian and a little bit English.
I speak Georgian, English, and a bit of Russian.
Yeah, on that, there was a couple of students in that class, the two Georgian boys, David and Otari, and when they came I had concerns about them, mainly because they were so different. I mean, they were brothers, but one was clearly had better English than the other, and better mathematics as well.
I come from China, and I went to New Zealand when I was 5 in 1999, and then I went back again, when I was 9 years old. Then I stayed in China for 4 years, and then I came back again, about a few months ago.
It was very hard. It was very hard because I don't know English, and they know English.
Well, yeah, I probably would go to our ESOL department first, because there are so many ESOL learners in that class, so I just sort of liaise with Chitska. She tells me, when a new student comes, she'll give me a sort of background, where they're from, you know, what their support in the school is, if there's other Korean students in the class, or, and then she'll give me information about, you know, where they are. They're, you know, they've had this much schooling in their first language and their proficiency in English, and yeah, sort of things that I'll need to do in the class.
Our results from our diagnostic testing that we do anyway is shared with the heads of departments, and it is up to them to, we discuss that, what levels they're at, and in combination with their own testing of the students and their own valuation of the students, that should give them a good picture of where the student's at and what their ability is. Have you got some worries about their
Yeah, well, I've got their
maths
tests,
levels?
and Otari's obviously a lot better at maths than David. And I wondered if they've got the same language background.
That doesn't surprise me at all, because Otari has had some background in New Zealand before, when he was younger. So his vocabulary levels are at 2000, which is a general, getting close to a general working proficiency. So he would be able to cope with the language in maths much better than his brother. His brother came recently, and his vocab level's at 400, so that's really very, very basic. It may not necessarily translate into the maths, though, because their knowledge of that might be similar. Do you find that?
His number stuff's pretty good.
Yes,
yeah.
Okay, so
But
it really is the
when
language.
he has to explain. What should I be doing for David then? What should I do differently for them?
Well, David really should receive much more support vocabulary-wise, and we can do that. We can work together in the ESOL department with you on that. If you give us the topics, then we can do that vocabulary support.
So this topic was statistics, probably focusing on sort of 3 objectives. One was learning the language of statistics, so the key vocabulary. The second thing was being able to calculate statistics, so that's the sort of mathematical procedure. And then the third one that the students find the most difficult was communicating the statistical findings, so making a report or making graphs and making comments about that graph. So I've written some numbers up on the board here, and on your board I want you to describe that data. What do you see? I wanted to know what they knew. So that was left fairly open. Every student in the class hopefully could approach it somehow. So when we did in the class, one student just wrote down one number, whereas other students who obviously were a lot more comfortable with the idea of statistics wrote down a whole range of values, and we went as far as mode, meet, started using the key vocabulary. The reason we use the whiteboards is because every student's involved, so that every student writes something down. Can you all hold up your boards? Let's see what we got. Fantastic.
The mode is 9, the middle number is 13, and the lowest is 5, sir.
Fantastic. Ione, you said the middle number. Yes. Has anyone else got the middle number?
13. It's the median.
The median.
So when Ioni's saying the middle number, you're saying the median.
Yeah.
Right, so remember why we're doing this task is we're trying to describe the data, and we want to start using the the correct terms, the mathematical terms. It's different maths language than everyday language. So when you say the middle number, I know exactly what Ioni means, but when you say the median, I know what you mean in mathematics.